Storytime about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade. And we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first, she always had my back when I needed her, but then out of nowhere she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class, and everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again. How I do my makeup so bad and I can never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day, and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part 3 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, I went to the football game. She wasn't there because she had something else to do. I went up to him. I started flirting. I told him that he should break up with her and date me instead. And I also said that she was a bitch and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he was like, why would you say that about your best friend? And he was like, I would never date you. And I had a feeling this would happen. So I had photoshopped a picture of her and this guy that she sits next to in her lab class. And I showed it to him and I was like, see, she's cheating on you. So he was pissed off. He gave me his number. And the next day he came over to my house. We cuddled, watched movies, we kissed. After 3 months, Ashley found out. We hadn't talked to each other since then, but now I am 16 in 10th grade and still with her ex-boyfriend. Funny thing though, the picture that I photoshopped with her and that guy, she's literally dating him now. So you're welcome, I guess. But anyway, she still goes around talking shit on me. I mean, who can blame her? I did steal. Story time about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 8th grade, and my best friends and I were having a sleepover. And right before we had went to sleep, we were all talking about this one TikTok trend that was going around. It's like this trend where girls would go and put wax on their boyfriends while they were sleeping and then take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so that night I went to sleep. I should have knew this was gonna happen because I'm always the butt of the joke whenever it comes to our friend group. Like, I'm always the one getting picked on. Like, there was this one thing that my friend Ashley saw online. It was like, if you put white nail polish on your teeth, it would make your teeth whiter. So who did they decide to try it out on? Yup, me. And yes, I could have said no, but these were my best friends. I didn't think that they would intentionally hurt me. Anyway, so like I said, I go to sleep and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to something very, very, very hot on my face. I open my eyes and all of my friends are standing above me with their flashlights on. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow while I was asleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, went to sleep, didn't think anything was gonna happen, and then I wake up and all of them are standing above me with their flashlights on. And then I realized that Ashley has a stick in her hand. Once I realized that there was wax on the other end of the stick, I started screaming. So then Kelsey decides to cover my mouth. She's like, shh, it's not that bad, I promise, like, don't worry. I get up real quick, I run to the bathroom, and there's like this pink transparent wax on my eyebrow. It was about 3 a.m. and we're all sitting there trying to find ways to get this wax off of my fucking eyebrow. Well, then Amber goes, I'm tired of this, grabs it and rips it off my forehead. So I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm in 8th grade, I'm about to have my glow up, and y'all gotta ruin it with taking my eyebrow off. So nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night because they thought that I was gonna do something to them. So I acted all cool. I was like, no, it's fine, I can just draw it on. When in reality, I was going to cut this bitch's hair. Like for part 3 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night. I acted like it was okay because I was plotting in my head that I was going to cut one of their fucking ponytails off. So I go over to their house next week, and every single day that week they were telling me how good my drawn on eyebrow looked. It didn't actually look good, and none of my hairs were growing back. So around 12 o'clock, all of us are ready to go to bed. I'm laying down, pretending that I'm sleeping, and they think I'm sleeping, so they're over there talking shit about me on her bed, Ashley's bed. I wasn't sure which one's eyebrow I should rip off because the one ripped off my eyebrow, but then the other one put the wax on my eyebrow. They were like, she's sleeping. I don't think she's gonna do anything. She doesn't even have the balls to do anything. So around 4 in the morning, everybody is dead asleep. I get up and Ashley had her hair in a ponytail. So that was easy enough. I grabbed a pair of scissors out of my book bag and I cut her hair off. Story time about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. Well, at the end of summer, right before school started, this girl named Liv added me on Snapchat. And I had seen her all around school. She was very popular and a little bit stuck up. But I added her back and then I got a call on Snapchat from her. I answer very awkwardly and I'm like, hi. And then she was like, oh, I've seen you in a lot of this guy's pictures. Are you guys like best friends? And I'm like, yeah, sort of. And she goes, have you ever thought about dating him? It was just an extremely weird, out of nowhere conversation. Anyway, so fast forward 2 weeks, I walk in the first day of school with my best friend Tommy. And Tommy and I have like every single class together. For some reason, Liv thought that we were friends and she would come and go as she pleased. Like Tommy and I would be standing at my locker. She would come over. Anyways, fast forward to chemistry. She walks in the class, winks at Tommy, like for part 2. Part 2 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, we were in chemistry. She walks in and she winks at Tommy. And I look over real quick and I realize that her nails were vermilion. That's Tommy's favorite color. And by the way, like I said before, I did not know this girl at all. We had never hung out. She never talked to me before this. Not to mention, anytime that her and I talked, she would only talk about Tommy. Fast forward a couple days, we're in chemistry, and somehow she got her assigned seat next to me. And she was like, hey, do you want to study for the chemistry test together? And I was kind of excited because I thought that I had a new best friend. So I said, yeah. Later on, she comes to my house. I never told her an address or anything like that. So I was very creeped out about how she knew my address. We studied for the test and she goes, hey, do you want to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys tomorrow? Well, tomorrow was the day that I was going out of town. So she goes, okay, maybe next week. After being out of town, I came back on a Saturday. And the next day I get a text from Tommy, like for part 3. Part 3 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, she asked me if I wanted to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys. I told her that I was going out of town. When I got back from out of town, the next day, I get a text from Tommy. He was flipping out on me. He said that I was talking shit about him to Liv. And apparently I said that I was happy that his mother died. And a bunch of other bullshit. Well, after that, Tommy cut me off, so I was lonely, and I started hanging out with Liv more, even though she said that terrible stuff to Tommy and made him cut me off. So fast forward a year, he is a new best friend, right? I get a DM from her on Instagram saying like, hey, did Tommy used to be your best friend? Pretty much everybody knew what happened between me and Tommy. But she was like, that girl that you're best friends with is dating him now. And then he completely cut me off. So technically, she used both her and I to get with Tommy. But after dating for literally like 2 months, he cheated on her because she slept with 5 other guys.
Am I the asshole for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations and specific shoes, which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair started to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made the difficult decision to cut my hair. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything bad. The following week, she came over to my house, and when she was about to leave, she brought up that she was concerned about my haircut, and I told her it would look good, even though I wouldn't be uniform with the other bridesmaids. The following day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I have been very accommodating and graceful, but I can't allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding has been something I've dreamt of for many years. Husband and I invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the memories. Since I asked each of you to be bridesmaids in 2019, I've been very clearly and very communicative in my request. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not inform in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health concerns, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you or anyone else when you could have informed me in advance and we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice asking them to reimburse me for the dresses and shoes. Keep in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession even though I paid for it. Neither of them replied, and so I decided to take it to court. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan the wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a bridal shower after our bachelorette trip had to be cancelled. I spent hours helping her out with the wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I was more than willing to oblige with what she had asked, even if at times it was a lot of time and money. So am I the asshole for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I believe I might be the asshole because I did agree to be a bridesmaid and knew what obligations I would have to meet financially and time-wise. I was willing to spend the money on the dresses and shoes as her bridesmaid, and technically I own the dresses now. I've been on your side from the start with this one. Your hair was deteriorating and falling out in chunks, and you had to make the difficult decision to cut your hair. In her response, there's absolutely no sympathy for you at all through there. Who does she think she is? Yeah, dude, you asked each and every one of us in 2019 to make sure that we don't have any degenerative diseases that make our hair fall out in chunks. I'll just chuck that one in the diary. I'll just plan ahead to make sure that doesn't happen to me. You're not the asshole. Now in the comments, so, not the asshole. You agreed to be a bridesmaid and spent $700, and due to something out of your control, you had to cut your hair. Thus, given that you wouldn't match, we're told you wouldn't be in the wedding. Sue, and bring all the items you have in your possession to court with you so you can turn them over if the court rules in your favor. By the way, no matter what, I'd go no contact, as you really don't need a friend like this. I hope you win the court case, but it sounds potentially difficult. What a shitty person to put hairstyle for wedding over your health. Maybe I just don't get it because I don't plan on getting married, but do people care so much about their weddings that they are this anal about the length of their frickin' bridesmaid's hair? I see so many of these stories about brides like this one, and they all sound like absolute monsters. Does it really matter what length or color someone's hair is? I understand your bridesmaids having matching dresses and shoes, that makes sense, and I understand wanting to have your wedding planned out and all that good stuff, but no one's wedding is so important that you get to act like you're a goddess and treat other people like dirt. Not the asshole. If the wedding hinges on how someone attending it will look, then the marriage is probably doomed. Good luck with your court case. Update us, please. And now on to that update. This has been a long time coming. I've had a lot of people reach out to me asking what the results of the case have been. Unfortunately, I could no longer post comments of my previous post as well. I figured I would wait until everything was done to update everyone all at once. In December 2021, I got the notification that a court date had been set for February 7th, 2022. It would be virtual, and since it's small claims, we would represent ourselves. I began gathering my evidence and created a virtual file, which I shared with the court and her 7 days before the hearing. On the day, she did show up. We were given the chance to settle, but that was unsuccessful. When we returned to the hearing, I found out she also made a virtual file with her evidence, but never shared it with me. The court then made her share it, and what a surprise I had! She had copied my entire format for presenting evidence. Keep in mind that this is a format I created. She didn't even have the decency, or brain cells, to make something up herself. The hearing proceeded, and we were both given a chance to share our side. I won't go into the details of it, but it took probably 10 to 15 minutes. In my state, they do not give you the verdict right away, and it can take up to 90 days. And so, I waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. Then yesterday on May 5th, almost 90 days after, I got a verdict. I won. She has been ordered to pay me the total of $808.94 for the dresses and shoes. I have to return 2 dresses and shoes that I have to her. The verdict goes into effect May 30th. I don't see her appealing it, or fingers crossed she doesn't. All in all, I am very happy with the outcome and so ready to close this chapter. Thank you to everyone who has been so invested in this with me. I hope this was the season finale that you were looking forward to. P.S. My hair and health are doing much better. My 3 bald spots are growing again, and I couldn't be happier. And now in the comments, I am super glad for you. In the first place, you had to cut your hair because of health reasons, and your friend was more concerned about the vision of her perfect wedding than your health. I'm sure there could have been something done, like hair extensions or a wig, if you had agreed to that. Instead, she just kicked you out. It's only right you got reimbursed for all that money. That's wonderful. However, just a warning, is there anything you can do if she doesn't comply? I had to take someone to small claims court years ago and won. They refused to pay and ignored the order. I ended up having to put a lien on their house and waiting until they sold it years later to collect the money. Garnishing wages might also be an option. For OP, I mean of course. I had a similar experience. Took someone to court and won, but knew she wouldn't just hand over the money. After I started garnishing her wages though, I guess she found that embarrassing or humiliating, because she first tried telling me she'd have to declare bankruptcy if I didn't drop my claim, and when I called her bluff, she ended up settling in full. People always say you can't get blood from a stone, but I say a lot of squishy blood-filled humans just pretend to be rocks. For God's sake, I don't understand the "I'm getting married, so everyone in the wedding party has to do what I want them to with their appearance and hair color/length" level of entitlement that brides have. My sister's only rule for my hair was freshly dyed, which her best friend royally screwed up, and no space buns. I'm glad you won in court, and I hope you do get paid, and I wish the best for you and your health. Those bald spots could have been caused by the stress of being this lunatic's bridesmaid. That was my thought too. And why are people so keen on having the perfect video of their wedding day lunacy? In any case, the married couple will remember this episode every single time they think back to their wedding day during their lifetimes. So the OP not only won in court, but will continue to win and win and win. At least the bride got some practice in court in preparation for her future divorce. I'm so tired of people using disrespect in this way, the way the Bridezilla did, I mean. Every single thing that happens in life that you don't like, you disagree with, or is a result of people living their lives without you as the main character, isn't disrespect. This was a medical issue. If the bride really thinks OP somehow made her hair fall out on purpose just to disrespect her, she should ask herself what she did to lose OP's respect. But I doubt her mind works that way.
Storytime about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. Little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me every single day. From 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate, and I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy, and I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study, for part 2 about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up, so I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, "Oh my God, let's do this. I'm so happy." And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired, and 3 years later, we're still together raising our child. Storytime, my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So a little background information, I was 18 and a freshman in college. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years going on 4. And we were pretty much what you call a very toxic relationship. We would break up with each other, then get back together 5 minutes later. I would say that it's all really my boyfriend's fault, because instead of spending time with me, he would rather go out to the club and sleep with any whore that he could find. But he would always start an argument with me before he went to the club so that way he had a reason to cheat on me. And he's been doing this ever since we first started dating. I don't know why I didn't take that as a red flag, but I'm a dumb bitch who lacks common sense and is completely blind to red flags. So I started a private Snapchat, but I used it as almost like an OnlyFans. Except it was free. I added a bunch of guys on there and my boyfriend's cousins. His one cousin was my best friend and would low-key hype me up. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So like I said, I made this private Snapchat that was basically like an OnlyFans. And I had his cousin on there who was low-key my best friend. And he would low-key always hype me up on my thirst traps. So eventually I sent him a whole nude picture of myself. His cousin had a girlfriend, but neither of us were going to tell our significant others. And I told his cousin that I would sleep with him if he cheats on me again. Well, what do you know? A few nights later, he calls me starting an argument before he goes to the club. So I go to bed, I'm bawling my eyes out, and he calls me at 3 a.m. asking for me to get an Uber for him and some friends. But I hear a girl talking in the back. So obviously I gave him a hard time about it. So he hangs up on me, calls me 20 minutes later, and I hear this girl talking in Spanish in the background. Me being me, I assume the worst. I assume that he cheated on me. So he calls me the next day saying that we need to talk. I go over there, he says he doesn't want to be with me anymore. Life for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend cheated on me, so I cheated on him with his cousin. So like I said, he calls me over to his house. He says that I'm the problem in the relationship. I'm the reason why he cheats on me 24/7. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I leave and I go to his cousin's house and his cousin kind of does the deed on me. After that, I leave because I really wasn't trying to do the nasty. So a few weeks later, my boyfriend texts me saying, I need to talk to you, da-da-da. And we're not together at this point, mind you. And he's like, hey, like, I just feel like you're really not being honest with me. Like, I want to get back together, but I feel like you're unfaithful. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? You literally cheat on me 24/7. So I give him my phone to go through it. I thought I deleted everything, but I didn't delete a conversation between my best friend and I. So I'm bawling my eyes out, turn on my game face for lying. And I'm like, I swear to God, like, I didn't cheat on you. It was a prank. But he did the nasty with that girl, so I think we're even. So obviously I got back with him and we've been together for 4 years. Story time about how somebody stole my $12,000 dog at a house party. So a little background information, I was 17 and a junior in high school, and I decided to throw a party at my house before winter break. So usually whenever I threw parties, I would always have everybody in the basement because I had a pretty big basement. There was a sliding glass door to the outside, so nobody had to go upstairs to get in or get out. And I would always lock the door to the upstairs just in case anybody decided to wander up the stairs. And because I didn't think anybody would get in upstairs, I let my dogs run around the house. So everybody who I invited showed up, and I guess that my address got leaked because a bunch of random people started showing up at my house. And it's not like I didn't have neighbors. No, I lived in a very tight cul-de-sac. So people were parking in front of my neighbors' driveways, in my neighbors' driveways. So I called my parents, and eventually I had to have my neighbors call the cops on my house party. My own party. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how somebody stole my $12,000 dog at my house party. So like I said, I had to call my parents and they got the cops called on the house so that way I could get everybody that I did not know out of the freaking house. Thankfully, my friends and I hadn't started drinking yet because literally 5 minutes after my friends showed up, random people started showing up in big groups. So after everybody clears out, I go to walk upstairs and I have my keys in my hand ready to unlock the door. The door was literally busted open. Like somebody had to have kicked the doorknob because the frame was cracked, the door was cracked, it was bad. So I'm freaking out. I wasn't even thinking about my dog at the time until my friend Kirsten asked to see my new puppy because Kirsten had just got home from college and she had only ever seen the dog over FaceTime. So we're searching all over the house and we cannot find my fucking dog. Well, when my parents got home that night, they pretty much grounded me for life. But then I want to say a month later, my friend Jake, who was there that night, called me freaking the fuck out. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my $12,000 dog got stolen at my house party. So like I said, we couldn't find Mimi. My parents pretty much grounded me for life. I get a call from my friend Jake, who was there that night of the night of the party. And he's like flipping out. He's like, I think I know who took Mimi, aka my dog. So I'm like freaking out. I go into the kitchen, I put him on speakerphone so that way my parents can hear. And he was like, well, my girlfriend Avery has this one girl who was at the party that night on Snapchat. And I was like, okay, and what the fuck about it? And he was like, well, the one night we were laying in bed together and she was going through people's Snapchat stories and then she got onto this girl's private story. And I told her, that's my friend's dog, the one that got stolen. So then we looked her up on Instagram, we went on her Visco, and she has a crap ton of pictures of your dog on her Visco. So somehow his girlfriend Avery finds this girl's address. My parents were like, oh, we want to call the police. Somehow I talked them out of doing that. Long story short, I went to her house, I got my dog back after telling her parents about it, but when I was leaving, I ran over her. Story time about how my mom got with my sister's boyfriend. So a little background information. I was 13 and in 8th grade, and my sister was a senior in high school and she was 17. And my sister always had a new boyfriend. Like after 3 months of dating somebody, they would break up and then she would be with a new guy a month later. And this started whenever she was a sophomore. So yeah, she had a lot of boyfriends. Anyway, so she had started dating this boy, and we're gonna call him Ben. Well, lucky for Ben, whenever they started dating was right around the time when we were supposed to go on our vacation that we take every year. So my mom and dad said that he could come with us. So my sister, who we're gonna call Emily, she decided to bring Ben, and I decided to bring one of my friends, Carly. We drove down, everything was good for the first 2 days, and usually what would happen on this vacation is my dad would end up staying at the hotel and doing work while we were all out doing stuff. So my mom, Ben, and Emily were all out drinking at the bar 24/7. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my mom got with my sister's boyfriend. So like I said, Emily, Ben, and my mom were out drinking 24/7 at the bar, and since this was a vacation that we took every year, my sister already knew a bunch of people down there. The one night my mom started feeling really sick at the bar, so Ben offered to take her back to the hotel. And at this time, my friend, my dad, and I were all down at the buffet in the hotel. So Ben took my mom upstairs to our hotel room, and my dad was like, oh, do you guys want to walk down to the fair? We said yes, so he told us to go upstairs and get his wallet. So my friend and I go up in the elevator to our room, and I want to say this was about 20 or 30 minutes after Ben and my mom had went upstairs. So we get into the room, we hear the shower running, which was weird because we didn't think anybody was there. So instead of me calling my dad because it might have been a murderer, I go, and the door slightly creaked open, so I look through the door, and obviously I could hear you know what, but hers and his clothes were on the floor. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my mom got with my sister's boyfriend. So like I said, obviously we could hear stuff. We saw their clothes on the floor, so I took a video and I took a picture. But obviously you couldn't see anything. And I didn't want to tell my dad first. So my best friend and I, we went downstairs, we went to the carnival. And when my sister got back, she ended up getting back with Ben because obviously after he was done, he went back to my sister. I know this is confusing, but try to keep up. So I asked my sister if she can pretty please take me and my friend down to the pool to go swimming. So my sister came down with us, and then I was like, I have to tell you something. So then I ended up showing her the photos and the videos, and at this point she's like, what the fuck? So surprisingly, without choking this man to death, she goes upstairs, she goes to sleep, and then the next morning she goes and has a talk with my mom. So my mom, my sister, my friend, and I, we all sat down at the buffet in the morning and had breakfast. And my dad and Ben weren't there. Well, long story short, my mom ended up saying, it's not fair that you bring all these young guys around me, da-da-da-da-da. Are you really gonna break up our family because of this? And till this day, my dad still does not know about it.
Our next post is titled, My Best Friend, 27 Male, and I, 27 Male, Kissed After Leaving My Wife. I'm still pretty confused, but the strangest part for me was that I really liked it and wanted to keep going. Not because someone was kissing me, but that it was him specifically. My wife, or ex, and I have been disconnected from each other for a long time, not getting along until we finally decided to call it quits. Yet, I'm not sad about it at all. I'm relieved it's over, and my best friend since like middle school is letting me stay here for now. We were talking about random stuff, then the conversation got a little deeper. He was looking at me with these eyes, and it just occurred to me to kiss him. He kissed me back. It was so intense, and look, I've never in my entire life ever kissed another guy before. Not only that, but in my mind, I'm wanting it to lead to more, but he stopped because he doesn't want it to seem like he's taking advantage of me right now that I just left my wife. I've got so much going on in my head now that I don't know what it means for us. All I really know is that I can't stop thinking about him and how much I really liked that kiss. And now in the comments, if you guys like each other, go for it. And OP says, I do like him, or it's that I can't stop smiling whenever I think about our kiss, but it's also freaking me out. That freaking out sensation could be, I won't say 100% it is, it could be your body telling you that that's what you want. If you can't stop thinking about it and missing the way he feels around you, or when you're being intimate, mind you, intimacy doesn't always equal sexual energy with each other, it could be a longing. Your body and your gut have a weird way of pointing you in the direction you're meant to go in, but it's never really apparent or convenient. Also, homosexual attraction is a ride, man. Keep hands, arms, and legs in the car at all times. Jokes aside, have a conversation around the kiss, what you both want to have happen after, and where you're both comfortable with it going, if anywhere. I wish you the best of luck. And OP replies, tell me about it. It's been chaotic and confusing. He's all I can think about right now. This is something I never thought about. Us together, I mean. It's made me think back on our friendship. Like, were these feelings always there? Or what the heck happened? Because I kissed him, now suddenly there is these feelings. We do gotta talk for sure. I've been at work all day, and we live together right now, so there is literally no avoiding what happened. Thanks everyone for being so cool about this. You and Tim both left her? Good on you, mate. All jokes aside, best of luck, dude. And OP says, no, I did. Or more like, she and I agreed this wasn't working anymore, so we ended things. I'm oddly happy, but I really don't know what comes after this. I've never been into guys before, it has never crossed my mind. It's possible to be totally straight, but one guy just does it for you. Sexuality is a spectrum. Maybe you're like 99% straight, maybe you're bi. Who knows? Only way to figure out is to explore it. That's so sweet. I hope everything works out for the best, and I must say, by the way you described him, that he sounds like the one person you need and want, and that is so wholesome and sweet. And OP says, he's an amazing person. I've always felt lucky to have him in my life. After this, I keep seeing him in a different light that makes my heart flutter, to be honest. It's super weird, yet also gives me a good feeling. I kind of hope it feels the same for him.
I never meant to make it by myself. Stuck between the ego and the devil and yourself. Got these habits, but I'll never ask for help. Just following my feelings, cause I love the way you felt. I can give you love, and it can give you time. It can make you smile, and I will make you cry. The only things in common when we talk about the past. I will be your first, and he will be the last. How you think about him when you're kissing me now. Feeling like it's been away. There's no doubt good in the word goodbye, but there's so much more to stay. So blame it all on me, darling. See I let you down. Blame it all on me.
And now on to the update. Holy crap, guys, I have a boyfriend. And that is really, really, really strange for me as someone who always considered himself straight. But you know what? I'm not going to stress about the labels. I only want to focus on how I feel about him and that he's definitely taken a place in my heart for longer than I was letting myself admit. When it's someone you've known since you were a kid and you kiss them, it really makes my mind think back to how long you have felt this way about them. There was a particular memory from my senior year that was completely erased from my mind. It was nothing romantic, but how I looked at him once and the way that it made me feel. That memory was pushed way down until it surfaced the more I thought about us after that kiss. Me and him talked so many times about this that same night after making my post. Because I wanted him to be completely open and honest, he admitted that he had been in love with me for a few years. It definitely took him time to accept that, but he never dared to say anything because I was married. There was a lot of crying, lots of hugging, and for me, there was tons of regret, thinking if I let my thoughts go there instead of ignoring my feelings, where would we be now? Could we have had these years together already instead of barely starting out now? It's a stupid thing to think about, I know, because it's not like we don't have the rest of our lives. We decided to pursue a relationship. I am so ecstatic. Since I'm still in the beginning process of divorcing my ex-wife and don't think I'm ready for everyone in my life to know about this yet, we are going to take it slow and keep this between us. It's been nothing but touchy-feely when we're home together ever since. I love how sweet he is. Anytime he does something like wrap himself around me from behind, he asks if this is okay or heck, even to kiss me, which I really can't get enough of. Anything that involves getting physical with me, he always asks if I'm okay with that. Of course, I ask him the same too, but I just really appreciate him being so caring about it. We went on a date last night to the movies. We don't even ask how the movie was because I really wouldn't be able to tell you. Before that, we just walked around the park talking about everything. After all the chaotic crap that's happened over the last few months, this is the most I've been at peace. I do have to admit we kind of threw away taking things slow once we got back home, but it was a very real and intense experience. I just can't believe it. It's crazy for me to think of all the things that I've felt for him all this time weren't as friendly as I thought. My only wish was that we got to explore these feelings between us sooner. I'm a happy and lucky guy, Reddit. It meant so much to me feeling so supported in this as a man who was a little scared about his feelings for another man. Thank you for rooting for us, because it made me root for us too. I'm crazy about this guy, so it's really exciting to see where our relationship will go. And now in the comments, super happy for you, dude. I understand feeling sad about years it seems like you have wasted, but you are still very young and have all the time in the world. And OP says, yeah, I'm trying hard not to focus on it too much because what's done is done. I'm still very happy to be with him. You were still friends the entire time, smiley face. They have been there always. It just speaks to the power of your friendship. You just leveled up. Hey, congrats on discovering something new about yourself, OP. I'm sure it feels good to just live authentically. Don't worry about labels, just love who you love. But be kind to the ex-wife. This is probably throwing her for a loop, unless the split was for other reasons. I'm truly happy for you though. And OP replies, it's not because of me and him. My ex and I haven't been happy together for a long time. Neither of us really loved each other anymore, so we decided, why keep this up, you know? This thing between us started after I moved in with him until finding my own place. Understood. I wish you nothing but the best, buddy. I'm 38 male, and I've known that I was gay since I was a kid, but I'm just now starting to sorta, peek my head out of the closet. But in the end, it really doesn't matter whether you consider yourself bi, gay, pansexual, etc., or even label yourself at all. I'm just always so glad to see people finally living with full authenticity. I am truly so happy for you. This post makes me nervous though, just because of how emotionally charged this situation is and how much pressure would be riding on this. I mean, with it being his best friend, and coming so quickly, that's what she said, on the heels of divorce. That being said, I hope we never hear from them ever again because everything is going so well. Alright, and that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Storytime about the time that I had a thing with my stepbrother. So a little background information. I was 14 and it was the first half of my freshman year. So my dad had recently broken up with my mom and he had different girls in and out of the house 24/7. I mean, he was kind of doing his thing after a 15-year marriage. Well, the one day I'm sitting in the house and he brings this girl Kayla over. She had a few kids herself, but both of them said that they would never date. Well, I thought her son Tyler was extremely good looking. So him and I started talking over Snapchat, and things were going good for quite a while. Well, I would say a few months later, my dad told us that Kayla was coming over with her kids. And I was super confused because he seemed really nervous about it. So her kids and I were all sitting on the sofa, and they sat us down and they were like, we need to talk to you guys. We're gonna call my dad Mike. She goes, Mike and I are dating now, so we all have to get along. The reason why she said that was because she thought that I didn't get along. Part 2 about how I had a thing with my stepbrother. So like I said, my dad and her sat us down and she goes, Mike and I are dating now, da-da-da-da-da. And she was like, so we all have to get along now. Because she thought that I didn't get along with some of her kids and her kids did not respect my dad at all. So like I said, Tyler and I were dating at this point. And I freaked out. I was like, you guys can't start dating because Tyler and I are dating. And Kayla was like, well, that's too bad. You two need to break up because I'm your new mother now. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck did this bitch say? So I start screaming that it's not fair. Tyler's trying to calm me down. My dad is trying to calm Kayla down. To be honest, my dad didn't really care because I had told him about Tyler and I before the whole situation. I thought Tyler would be really upset at the situation, but he was actually pissed off at his mom. So we broke up. Kayla and my dad dated for a little bit over 2 months. Well, surprise, surprise, Kayla cheated on my dad with her ex. So Tyler and I started dating again. Story time on when I caught my stepdad abusing my mom. So a little background information, men are trash, and I was 13 and in 7th grade. Well, it was my birthday and my mom took me to the shoe store to get some new shoes, and I saw this guy keep staring at my mother. So I pulled my mom aside and whispered to her like, hey, there's some dude staring at us, because low-key he looked creepy as hell. Well, apparently he wasn't creepy. He came up to my mom and started talking to her, and he was flirting with my mom a lot, so I grabbed a random pair of shoes and told her I was ready to go. Her and I walk up to the register. I think the conversation is over with her and James. But then he's like, oh, like, let me pay for that. Next thing you know, they exchange numbers and I start seeing him a lot more. And my mom seemed very happy, like she was smiling 24/7. So fast forward, we all move in together and I got a job. Well, my best friend Kayla was 17 and she had her driver's license. Like for part 2. Part 2 about when I caught my stepdad abusing my mother. So like I said, we all moved in together. My mother was super happy. And I had a job. My best friend would come and pick me up after this job, and I would usually get off work around 7 p.m. Well, around this time, James would have already been at work. He usually started work at like 6 o'clock, but every time that I would come home, my mother would be crying in her bedroom. So I ended up telling my best friend about it, and she said that she would come and get me early the next day from work, so that way we could possibly see what was happening while I wasn't there. So fast forward, the next day, Kayla come and gets me early from work. She pulls around the corner, and we walk to my house because they would have seen her car if we parked on the street. I quietly unlock the door. My best friend and I go upstairs. We hear my mom screaming in pain, and the bedroom door was wide open. He was hitting my mother, so I kind of whispered to my best friend to take a video while I called the cops. He ended up going to jail, got a restraining order, and now my mom and I are living in a new house.
Am I in the wrong for blowing up at my husband for lying to me about kicking my sister out? My sister is 20 and has just got out of a terrible relationship with her partner and has a 5-month-old son. She's dealing with lots of issues, including depression, and it was actually my husband's idea for her to come and move in with us. After about 2 weeks, my husband was complaining about the baby crying and about my sister just being there in general, even though she helps around the house. We had an argument about it, but he told me to just forget it and that he was being insensitive. Not long after, I had to leave town for a couple of days without my husband, and I returned and my sister's no longer there. My husband told me that my sister's gone to live with a friend instead and gave me a letter that was supposedly from her. The letter seemed a bit off, so I called her straight away. She told me that my husband kicked her out and told her that she's no longer welcome and should take responsibility. She explained that she is actually staying at a shelter and literally has no money. Go to part 2. Okay, this is part 2. So I waited for my husband to get home and literally blew up at him. He admitted that he faked the letter but said I'm unfair for taking her side. I told him that I'm going to pick her up because I don't want her to be homeless at a shelter with my 5-month-old nephew. He told me that he'd changed the locks and that I'm not allowed to bring her home. He said that I'm letting her affect our lives, but she's my sister and I don't know what to do. I get that it is also his house, but I don't know why he's so against her staying with us. Am I in the wrong?
Am I wrong for holding my wedding at the same venue as my first husband's funeral?
Ugh, that's a funny sentence.
Last summer, my first husband passed away after being in a car accident a month before. The doctors expected him to pull through, yet be paralyzed from the waist down, but he already had health problems and the trauma from the accident ultimately prevailed. I and his parents organized a funeral at a spacious old Catholic cathedral. I kept thinking to myself the whole time that this place is too beautiful for a funeral. That's what you were thinking about when your husband was in his casket, was that this place is too beautiful for a funeral? That's weird. For some reason, it felt wrong having such a sad occasion there. I even remember wishing that I had married my first husband there instead of the outdoor wedding we had. You're weird. Why are you thinking about that stuff? Fast forward to early 2022. I reunited with an ex-boyfriend of mine from years before. We started dating again, and before we knew it, we were engaged. I've been criticized a lot for how fast I moved on, but I guess everyone heals differently. We started planning for the wedding, and we decided that we'd have it at the same cathedral where my first husband's funeral was held. I still am in contact with my first husband's parents, and they were happy for me when I told them I was dating and then when I got engaged. In a phone call, my first husband's mother asked about the wedding, so I said that they could come if they wanted to. She seemed a bit taken aback at first, so I totally thought I screwed up, but then she said she'd love to. I don't know how to explain what happened other than to just write the conversation down as well as I could remember. Me. We will be marrying at this, insert name of the cathedral. Silence. Her. I just can't believe it. Me. Believe what? Silence. Her. I'm sorry, this is just appalling to me. Me. I want to have our wedding there in honor of my first husband. I would have married him there if I knew about this place. Her. You're moving on too quickly. You need to slow down. Think about how my son would feel. You can't replace him. Me. I'm not replacing him. I'm trying to keep his memory alive. I found love again, but I will never forget him. Her. You moved on. You've moved on. My son hasn't moved on. My son will never move on. And I'm sure if he were alive, he'd want to. Me. I'm sorry. And then she hangs up the phone. I haven't spoken to her or her husband since. I still plan on having my wedding there, but it just puts a bad taste in my mouth knowing that my first husband's parents are against it. But after all, they aren't involved in the wedding anyways, so I don't see why they should have a say. I wish they'd at least support me because I've been through hell and back. I'm in a better place now and they don't like to see me happy. But I also feel kind of selfish because they aren't happy. So am I the asshole?